Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to tonight's webinar. My name is Adam, and I'll be your moderator. Phylip Curtis is back with us today, this time discussing how thousands of practices raise their reimbursements. Before we get started, we've got a few reminders for you. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, please feel free to type them into the Q&A section of your control panel, and we will be more than happy to answer them at the end. Henry Schein is not offering CE credit for viewing or attending this presentation, live or on demand, and this webinar is sponsored by Unitas Dental. Phylip, take it away.
Awesome. Thanks, Adam. Adam, can you hear me okay? Just want to make sure that my audio is working.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Adam, for the intro. Thank you to everybody who's joining us today. I know there's a couple practices still hopping on here, so I'll do a quick intro while that's happening. So my name is Phylip Curtis. I'm from Unitas Dental. I've been working with Unitas for about almost 8 or 9 years now and have had quite a few opportunities to present this information to everyone within the dental industry. And I'm super excited for today's presentation. I'm really grateful for you dedicating the last few precious hours of your time before the holidays with me. I know that it's going to be worth your while, and I'll try to make it short and sweet today and packed full of good, helpful information. A lot of what we're going to go over today, I've reviewed in other webinars before. If you've caught bits and pieces of it, it may seem familiar to you. But what I found is that a lot of times I've spoken to plenty of practices. I was just talking to Adam about this. I've spoken to many practices who have watched this webinar 1 or 2 or 3 times over because they're trying to internalize and write down and document all the information that they're wanting to implement in their practice. So I encourage you to do that throughout the presentation today. It's packed full of a lot of actionable steps and workflows that you can use in your practice. So be sure to take notes. Also, I just want to, obviously thank you for your time, but it also reminds you that the information we're going over today on how to increase reimbursements is super important all the time, all year round, but specifically right now, this is kind of that sweet spot that you want to start to prepare to increase those reimbursement rates as we're entering the new year. That can open up some new doors and opportunities for you with specific insurance companies. So I'm glad that you're taking the time to spend this 45 minutes or so with me today. I'm going to try to knock through this. Like Adam said, if you have questions throughout, feel free to use the chat or the Q&A window down below. We're going to hit the Q&A towards the end, but as you have the questions come up, feel free to send it through. I've got it over here on my screen, so I'll keep an eye on it throughout. So if I need to cover it as I'm reviewing the information, I will. Otherwise, we'll knock those out towards the end. So hopefully everybody can hear me okay, and then put those chat or questions through the chat window, and we'll get started. So like what Adam said, we're going to talk about how are thousands of practices across the country increasing their reimbursement rates without becoming PPO negotiation experts. So why are we talking about this? Why do I even have the credibility to talk about this? So like I said, I've been working here at Unitas for about 9 years. We at Unitas Dental have been helping practices to negotiate and optimize their reimbursement rates since 2011. We've been in the business for quite a bit of time. We've worked with thousands and thousands of practices across the country in every state. Right now, we represent over 1,200 locations. We're actually approaching 1,300 locations, which is awesome. We're located in Arizona. It's a nice, cloudy, kind of cool day in Arizona today, which is nice for a change. I'm sure we've got practices tuning in from across the country, but we have over 65 insurance experts on staff. And this is all we do is help to negotiate, optimize, and get you credentialed and evaluate the insurance plans that you're taking. So because we do that for so many practices, I kind of wanted to open up the playbook and explain to you what our process is and how you can implement it on your own in your practice, because there's so many ways that you can help increase your reimbursement rates. And a lot of that is just the bridging the gap between the information you know and the information you don't know. So let me kind of go into what the 3 main strategies are going to be today. We're going to talk about 3 main categories. I'll break them down, make them super actionable. A ton of content is what we're going to go over today. So get out a notepad and paper and start to write this down, because hopefully you'll be able to catch all this info. First thing we're talking about is how to understand your PPO participation and your reimbursements and some of the common misinformation that's out there regarding how insurance companies actually work and how they affect how you can negotiate. Second thing we're going to talk about are some specific tactics to use when negotiating and pieces of information that are pretty crucial to make sure that everything is properly functioning and working in your favor. The last thing we're going to talk about is how you can maximize your negotiation opportunities. If you're going to even spend the time to do this, what type of opportunities and options there are out there for you. So first, let's dive into key number 1. This is probably the most important and the most information heavy. So like I said, get a notepad and paper. Understanding your PPO participation and your reimbursements is probably the number 1 thing I spend most of my time doing and explaining and educating to practices, because it's the most misunderstood. So first and foremost, we're going to talk about how to discover and map out your actual PPO participation. We'll talk about how to receive and document your actual fee schedules. And then we'll talk about how you can compare and repair any type of UCR office fee and reimbursement discrepancies. We'll talk about all of that today. And again, like I said, if you've got questions throughout, I've already seen Q&A come in through the window. If you have questions, feel free to put them in through the Q&A or the chat, whatever is easiest for you. And we'll start to knock those out towards the end of the presentation. A lot of those I'll probably get to, but go ahead and put them in. So first and foremost, discovering and mapping your PPO participation. First, let's talk about what the different participation types are, and then we'll talk about how to collect that information from the insurance companies. All right, so first, there's 3 different ways that you can participate in network with any given insurance company. This is the first thing that I find that most practices fail to understand, or even just the regular doctors. Maybe an office manager or an insurance coordinator understands it, but generally the doctors don't. So if you're a doctor, this is super helpful information for you, because most doctors assume I'm either in network or I'm out of network. There's really only 2 ways I'm with insurance. I'm either going to get paid by the insurance on a reimbursement or I'm not, or the patient's going to owe or they're not. I'm either in or I'm out. Usually when you're in network, there's actually 3 different levels of in-network participation status. And it seems a little detailed and may get a little fuzzy, but if you can understand this, it's really going to open up your eyes to why PPOs operate the way that they do, how you can fix and use these options to your advantage. And it helps you understand really what the strategy should be, because it makes a lot more sense when you understand what the actual problem is to then understand what the solution should be. So first, let's talk about what a direct contract is. So again, this is one type of participating with insurance companies. If I, as a dentist, credential with an insurance company and I send them an application, let's say it's Guardian. I send Guardian an application, I fill out all my information, and I agree to Guardian's fee schedule, and I get paid by Guardian according to Guardian's fee schedule for Guardian patients. That is a direct contract. That's what most insurance companies have with a lot of doctors. That's what most doctors think that they have, but that's not always the case. It's only one of 3 ways you can participate, okay? The next way you can participate with an insurance and still participate in the whole in-network status is by or through a PPO to PPO leasing method. So what does that mean? A lot of practices have seen this happen, but don't understand how it happens to them. PPO to PPO leasing is typically a participation type that you don't typically sign up for. It's usually something that happens to you as an indirect result of what the insurance company has the power to do. So for example, let's keep using that Guardian method, right? So let's pretend like you participate directly with Guardian. Well, Guardian, among with almost every other insurance company, has the power to lease you out to other insurances. So they can lease back and forth, or they can lease one direction, right? So actually, to make this easier, let's pretend like Guardian's the green insurance in this scenario. So you've contracted with Aetna, you've agreed to Aetna's reimbursement rates, you credentialed with Aetna, everything's fine. Then maybe 3 weeks or 3 years or 3 months down the road, you get a letter in the mail from Aetna that says, congratulations, you're now in network with Guardian patients through your Aetna contract. So what does that mean? What it means is that Aetna has leased you out to Guardian, and Guardian can now pick you up in network through your current relationship with Aetna. So what does that essentially mean for you? What does that change? Well, if you were out of network with Guardian, you're now going to be in network and you're going to get reimbursed according to the Aetna fee schedule and those rates of reimbursement. Or if you were in network with Guardian through another leasing arrangement, maybe you were in network with Guardian through a company like Sun Life or United Concordia, if it changes to Aetna, now your reimbursement rates are going to change to Aetna's rates of reimbursement. Does that make sense? So leasing arrangements typically happen to you because insurance companies have the power to lease you out or borrow you from other insurance companies. So in that scenario, you're now having 2 patient bases being funneled through one set of reimbursements. Is that a problem? It depends. We'll talk about that here in a couple of minutes. The most important thing to understand, though, is that that can happen and that exists all the time. So why it can matter is if you have multiple doctors at your practice, a lot of times what we see happens is 1 or 2 of your doctors may be in network through one of these leasing scenarios, and the other doctor is directly contracted. So what does that ultimately mean? 2 of these doctors may get paid through Aetna for Guardian patients, which means they may get some $85 for specific reimbursement. And then the third doctor who's in network with Guardian directly is getting paid $95 for specific reimbursement. And why are they different? Because they're being paid under different fee schedules. So that's why this matters. Ultimately, at the end of the day, is it's probably not the best idea to have all your doctors being reimbursed across all different fee schedules even especially if it's the same patient, right? That's where we want to create some continuity and some consistency. Also, when you're negotiating or you're optimizing, knowing where your doctors are participating now is crucial in order to know what you can improve them to. For example, if these two doctors are starting under an Aetna contract and this doctor is starting under a Guardian contract, those reimbursement rates are different. Their participation types are different. If the ultimate destination is to get all three participating with Guardian directly, the process to get these two doctors to a direct contract will be a lot different than this doctor. Nothing needs to happen here. There needs to be processes and paperwork sent to switch from this contract to this contract. And again, I'm getting a little bit of ahead of myself, but that's why this matters. That's why you need to understand their participation per doctor, because it can be different. And if you're going to negotiate it, you need to understand if your doctors are starting out on different fee schedule reimbursements all to begin with. Okay. That's a leasing arrangement. That's how they work. The last type of participation is umbrella networking. These companies are also known as third-party administrators. Umbrella networking is not really an official term. It's something that a lot of people like us use in the industry. The reason why they're called umbrella networks is because they operate like an umbrella. Lots of insurance companies fall underneath their quote unquote umbrella, which is why we call them that. So how they work is they usually are not an actual insurance company. They're usually just a third-party administrator. So a company like Dynamax is a perfect example of this. Dynamax is not typically considered an actual insurance company. They don't have insured patients. They don't have card-carrying members. They operate like a third-party administrator. So what happens is they create a series of fee schedules that they go out and credential and recruit doctors to join their network. Dynamax on the back end has also created a partnership with multiple different insurance companies. So what happens when you credential with somebody like Dynamax? You send your information to them, and then they shoot your information out to all their partners. And then what will happen is you'll slowly start to fall in network with multiple insurance companies, and they will all be funneled through that one third-party administrator, namely Dynamax. What does that mean? So if these three insurance companies, you have them participating through Dynamax right now, let's pretend like it's MetLife, Cigna, and Principal. If you treat any of those three patients, the claims will get paid through the Dynamax reimbursement rate. So you funneled three patient bases through one fee schedule. Why does that matter? When you're negotiating, you need to know what you're being paid and who you're being paid by. That's why this matters. Okay. So like I said, just to drive the point home, understanding how you participate by doctor, by location is crucial in order to tell you what you can and what you can't do in order to negotiate and optimize. The point I like to drive home with this is imagine you had a family of triplet boys come into your practice. And again, they're triplets. So they share all these chromosomes, they share all this DNA, but you do x-rays on the first boy. You find out that he needs a cavity he needs a filling on a specific tooth because he has a cavity. How silly would it be to be like, oh, well, he's got two other twins or he's got triplets, so they probably need cavities too. And without doing an x-ray, you just go ahead and start drilling away at his brothers. It'd be kind of silly to do that, right? It seems like that would be silly, but that's a lot of what practices do in PPO participation. They assume that because the owner doctor participates with Guardian directly, that obviously all the associates have to participate the same. You would assume that, but again, that's not always the case, and it's very rarely the case because of how often insurance companies can change your arrangements and how easily they are to be changed either through a mistake, through an intention on your end or intention on the PPO's end, or just because a computer decided to situate you differently. There's all these different variables that can switch participation per doctor. So that's why it's crucial to understand, because you need to know, just like with those three boys in those examples, they are all three different mouths. Just because they're the same family and they're the same gender and they came from the same basic DNA, doesn't mean they have the same problems. Same thing here. Just because all three doctors participate in the same tax ID number, the same insurance company, doesn't guarantee that they participate the same. And if they don't, then the treatment that you prescribe to them or the solutions you're going to do to negotiate should be different if they are starting in a different scenario. Okay. All right. So after you understand kind of those different participation types, you need to start collecting and receiving your actual fee schedule reimbursements. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to call provider relations or check your portal or email them for your current fee schedules per doctor per location. Most provider relations reps can give you that information. They can give you both how each doctor participates. So if you ask specifically, how do I have Dr. Johnson participating? How do I have Dr. Smith participating? How do I have Dr. Bethany participating? That participation needs to be documented per doctor. Also, they're going to give you the corresponding fee schedule associated to that. Once you have those fee schedules received, they usually will email them to you or they'll fax them to you. You need to update your Dentrix or your practice management software with those current fee schedules to ensure that, number one, your treatment planning is more accurate going forward, but number two, it's going to be preparatory to negotiations that you have the most accurate data on hand. Okay. Now, once you've gotten those fee schedules, the first thing you want to do prior to negotiating is fix all of the very obvious problems. One of the ways that you can shoot yourself in the foot prior to negotiating with an insurance company is coming to the table with a UCR or an office fee that's lower than what that PPO would be willing to reimburse you. So I'm going to repeat that again. One of the worst things you can do when you're negotiating with an insurance company is coming to the table, telling them that your UCR is $85 and they are willing to reimburse you and are reimbursing your peers in your area $95. Because what does that tell them? That tells them that your sticker price is already lower than what they're willing to reimburse you. And what does a PPO assume? PPO assumes that you charge X and they reimburse Y. They need to show a discount to the patient. Otherwise, what's the value proposition of an insurance company to begin with? So knowing that that's their value proposition, why would you ever charge a UCR that's below them? And a lot of times you won't know that unless you audit your UCRs against your current fee schedule reimbursements. And if you keep submitting those UCRs and they're below, it's either A, going to decline or inhibit your ability to negotiate, or number two, it's going to automatically mean that you're getting reimbursed below what your potential is because you've already shot yourself in the foot. So how do you do that? One of the easiest ways is to use a simple spreadsheet. I'm going to show you here at the end of the webinar how you can get your hands on a template that we've created for you to do this more easily that you can get for free. But the basic gist is in these bullet points here. First, you're going to start by entering your fee schedules into a spreadsheet. You're going to compare your top 20 to 35 UCRs versus your reimbursements. So what does that mean? In a couple of more steps, I'm going to talk to you about how to focus in on the procedures that matter. But when I say top 35 UCRs, I'm talking about your main procedure codes, the ones that you do the most frequently. So in one column, you're going to plug in your procedures. And the next column, you're going to plug in the UCR or the office fee that you're getting for each of those procedures. And then you're going to put a column for every insurance company that you're being paid by today. And then you're going to plug in the reimbursement rates that you're getting for each of those insurances. Then, unless you have our template that I'm going to share with you, as long as you've got a spreadsheet, you can then look code for code. Are any of my PPO reimbursements higher than my UCR? If they are, I need to increase my UCR by typically about 20 to 30% above that PPO reimbursement to account for the discount that they're wanting to show and expecting to receive for the patient. Okay. So if you haven't done that, and if you don't see any situations where the UCRs are below the PPOs, then you're golden. If you see any situations where they are, you need to change them. Okay. So number one, enter your fee schedules into the spreadsheet like that. You're going to raise your UCRs where necessary. Then the next thing that you can do to take it even further, to make sure that your UCRs are not only above your minimum reimbursement or maximum reimbursement, you want to make sure that they're competitive for your area. It's one thing to be above what the PPO wants to pay you, but it's another thing to be healthy and competitive for your area, because you want to make sure that that margin makes sense and that there is a significant margin between reimbursement and UCR. That way you're incentivizing the insurance and educating them on what your true cost for that procedure is. So one way that you can do that is you can utilize any type of available percentile-based analysis tools that ensure and show you where your UCRs fit in a percentile basis for your area. One of the biggest ones out there, and the one that we use for our clients, is Henry Schein's fee schedule analysis tool. So you can go in and you can plug in your UCRs and they'll give you an analysis to show you where your UCR fees fall in terms of your peers in your area. And again, that's your UCR, which is your usual and customary. That's your office fee, that's your sticker price for your procedures. That's not your reimbursement. That's what you are billing out. That's what you're saying your sticker price is for your procedures. Again, the final point is high UCRs or office fees correlate with high reimbursement rates. We've always found that. We've found that for 10 years. And again, it makes sense and it's logical, but you have to take the necessary steps to ensure that you know that your UCRs are in a competitive range. Having low UCRs is not going to 100% shut down your ability to negotiate or our ability to negotiate, but it does encourage and improve the effort and the ability and the likelihood of the insurance company to negotiate with you. Okay. So that's that point right there. That's understanding PPO participation and current reimbursements in a nutshell. Next, let's talk about top PPO negotiation tactics and how you can use them in your practice. We'll talk about how to ensure you're not wasting time on the wrong procedures, because who likes to waste time? And And again, we're going to talk about how to actually approach the PPO negotiation process. And then we'll talk about how to compare the offers you're receiving from an insurance company. And we'll go through all those steps. All right. Again, this is a ton of information. So go ahead and jot down, take notes, add questions in as you have them. All right. Moving on. Let me take a drink real fast. All right. Ensuring you don't waste time on the wrong procedures. First thing you're going to do is you're going to export what's called an annual production summary from your practice management software. Go ahead and write that down. Annual or 12-month production summary. That is something that's easily exportable out of every major practice management software, whether you're using Dentrix or anything else. That comes up very easily. You want to make sure that the report has basically 3 fundamental components. It should list out the CDT procedure code. It should list out the quantity of those procedures performed in 12 months and the production generated from that procedure. So it might say D0120 or your periodic oral exam, and then it'll say, hey, I've done 1,300 of these and I generated 115 grand. So it will show you procedure, quantity, and production generated from that. Now, once you have all that, you're going to take that information. If it comes out in an Excel file, that's awesome. A lot of them don't. They come out in PDF. So you're going to have to retranscribe that into a spreadsheet. Once you have it transcribed into a spreadsheet, you're going to sort the 3rd column, which shows you how much production you've made, by highest to lowest. So that way you can identify what are your 20 to 35 procedures that are your highest grossing, meaning which ones make you the most revenue. Now, that's those procedures that you identify, you're going to use in step 2. And you're also going to be using it when you're comparing fee schedule offers. So that last step, when I was talking about, you want to put in your top 35 UCRs. Well, this is how you figure out those top 35 UCRs or procedures is based on gross production per year. Okay. Now, when you're negotiating, it's not that you're going to ignore all 600 to 900 CDT codes out there. The purpose of identifying 20 to 35 procedure codes is because it helps you focus on the ones that you actually do. And I'm sure a lot of you have already seen this. We all know that there's hundreds and hundreds of CDT codes out there, but not every practice does them all. No practice does them all. Most practices do anywhere from 20 to 40 actual CDT procedure codes in a given year, and that makes up like 95% of all your revenue. So you want to know what are those, so that way when you're evaluating offers from the insurance companies, when you're doing that UCR analysis I was just talking about, you're focusing on the procedures that actually matter for you. Okay. Now, let's go to the next step. Approaching the PPO negotiation process. Number 1, important to know that most insurance companies will consider negotiating every 2 to 3 years. Now, it's important that I said most. There's really one main insurance company historically, before everybody asks, most people know, but everybody asks, does Delta Dental negotiate? The sad answer is at this time, we've rarely, if ever, seen Delta negotiate across the country. That may change, we never know, but it's been 10 years and we've rarely seen them negotiate. And if anything, it's not much of a negotiation as much as it is that they slightly increase your fee schedule on their own. So Delta Dental is one of those ones that historically will not negotiate with anybody like us or even a practice. There's other insurance companies that go through histories of negotiating, some that are more lenient, some that are more strict. Some of them go through seasons of negotiation where they're ready and willing to, some that tighten the belt and hold off for a couple months. So it really just depends on the insurance company, depends on the time of year. But most every insurance company has a history of negotiating, or they can be optimized, which I'll show you here in a minute, what you can do to negotiate and what optimization means, what your options are. Okay. Now, knowing that, you should reach out to every insurance company that you have and reach out to provider relations and request a fee schedule increase. So those are the keywords. You reach out to provider relations or your rep or whoever you've been interacting with, and then you can say, hey, I would like to request a fee schedule increase. Now, once you've requested a fee schedule increase, you want to pay attention to a couple of things. First and foremost, if you're reaching out to an insurance company, you want to make sure that you're paying attention to that participation you gathered earlier. If your doctors, like I said, if you have 3 doctors, one of them is a network with Guardian, the other 2 are a network with Guardian through Aetna. For this doctor, when we're negotiating Guardian, he's the only one that's going to be affected if Guardian goes up, unless this participation is switched or changed. These other 2, if they're a network through Aetna, my negotiation attempts with Aetna are going to benefit these doctors. My negotiation attempts with Guardian are not going to benefit these doctors, unless participation is actually fundamentally changed, which we'll talk about here in a minute. So again, pay attention to your participation in any leasing arrangements. You want to ask for the increases on the fee schedules for the main payer. So for example, like I just said, if you're a net worth guardian, but you're paid under Aetna, you need to negotiate with Aetna in order to actually increase your fee schedule for that doctor, okay? Now, when an insurance company replies, like I said, most of them will consider negotiations every 2 years. It doesn't mean that they will actually respond with a negotiation offer, but many of them will. If they respond back with an offer, it's now really important that you know how to evaluate that insurance offer to make sure that, number one, that it's competitive for your area, and number two, that you're not going to end up losing money off of that new increased fee schedule. So using the previous steps where you're identifying the 20 to 35 procedures that have the highest quantity in production, you're then going to create a new spreadsheet and compare those fee schedules versus the ones that you're being paid on right now. So number one, if you get an offer back from somebody like Guardian, you plug in those procedures, you plug in what Guardian's paying you right now, and then you plug in the new offer from Guardian. Then you want to pay attention to that report you did earlier, which shows you the annual frequency of each procedure. Why does that matter? Because a lot of times when you get an offer from an insurance company on an increased fee schedule, not every procedure increases, or they may decrease some reimbursements and increase some others. Sometimes it's a game of give and take. If that's the offer given to you, then you need to make sure that you're evaluating the difference. Sometimes a procedure may look, or an offer from an insurance company may look fantastic because you got a couple ones that went up by $100 or more, but some of them went down by $5 or $10 or $15. So again, if you're not properly weighing the pros and the cons or the net gains or the net losses, you could end up losing money on a fee schedule offer. For example, if you got a $100 procedure increase, that could be outweighed by a $5 procedure decrease, depending on the frequency. If you do that $5 decrease procedure 2,000 times a year, and you do that $100 procedure increase 5 times a year, you're going to end up still losing money, even though they look better. Okay. That's why knowing how frequently you do a procedure is going to matter when you're evaluating those offers. So that's one of the main things we help you look at when we're doing this. That's what every practice should do, is evaluating the frequency that you perform the procedure. Now, if you look at an offer from an insurance company, the next thing you want to do is compare it against your other PPO fee schedules. How does this compare? Is this at, below, or above my average reimbursement? If it's at or above your average reimbursement, it's probably a pretty dang good offer. So if that's the case and you feel comfortable with the insurance offer that's been given to you and you feel like it's a net gain based off of what you've calculated and you've made the decision ultimately, because the decision is ultimately always yours, and you accept that fee schedule increase. Now, it typically takes anywhere from 30 to 90 days for the insurance company to process your claims on that new fee schedule. So what does that mean? A lot of times, if a practice actually gets an increase, it's so rare that they get so excited, they sign off on it, they send it back in. Or I can't tell you how many practices I've seen that they got so excited and they're like, all right, sounds great. And then they forget to sign it. And the insurance company is not going to be chasing you down saying, hey, you forgot to tell us how we can pay you more money. Hey, you forgot to tell us how we can pay you more money. No insurance company is going to do that. And so in a lot of cases, I've talked to plenty of practices that have forgotten to officially accept the offer, and then the offer is gone if they wait too much time. That's happened too many times. So number one, if you're going to take the offer, make sure that you follow through on it. And then number two, you want to make sure that you audit your Eobs after that effective date has been put into place for the new fee schedule to make sure that you're actually getting paid on the correct fee schedule. I can't tell you how many practices I talked to that if they go and audit their recent Eobs from an insurance company and they compare it against the fee schedule they signed up for or they were most recently given, the reimbursement rates are wrong. So you want to audit that and make sure that you're getting paid correctly. And if not, kick it back to your insurance company or call it provider relations and figure out why. Okay. Most fee schedules take time to go into effect, but once they've gone into effect, you want to make sure that they actually have. Okay. Last but not least, how do you actually maximize your negotiation opportunities, right? How do you ensure that your PPO fees are competitive, not just against your reimbursements, but for your area, right? If you've gotten an offer from somebody like Guardian, how do you know that that's a competitive fee schedule for your area for Guardian? How do you minimize optimization risks or benefits? If you're going to shift participation of one PPO to another because you want to go to a higher fee schedule, how do you make sure that that doesn't accidentally drop you out of network or remove your reimbursement rates down to a lower level? How do you minimize any risks and maximize those benefits? Lastly, how are you going to calculate your return on investment? If you're going to spend all this time to negotiate and optimize, how do you calculate that? Okay. First and foremost, if you want to ensure your PPO offers are competitive for your area, you have to understand two main principles. Number one, when you negotiate, or when anybody negotiates and you accept a fee schedule, you will be locked into that fee schedule for a minimum of 2 years. So when I say locked in, that doesn't mean that you can never leave the insurance company. A lot of practices think that once they sign a PPO, they can't ever terminate the contract. You can always terminate. Nobody's locked you in to staying in network. What I mean is you're going to be locked into those reimbursement rates for a minimum of 2 years. So if you go and attempt to negotiate on your own and get added to a fee schedule, and it actually wasn't that great, but you thought it was, tough luck. You're now locked into that fee schedule for a minimum of 2 years. Number two, if you want to know how competitive your offer is against your peers, then you have to have somebody working for you that understands what practices in your area and nationally and across your state are being paid. That's the benefit of working with somebody like Unitas. Since we've worked with thousands of practices and we have over 1,300 locations we work with nationwide, we have an enormous database of fee schedule data so we can understand and evaluate your offers to see how competitive they are for your area. Again, this is a pretty high risk, high reward scenario. If you're going to increase your fee schedules and accept an offer, and you want to feel comfortable about the offers you've received, then that's why you would want somebody like Unitas to evaluate and either negotiate for you or evaluate those offers for you. Okay. Now, on top of that, not only having a database, we obviously have relatively high level or dedicated insurance contacts that we've worked with for years. So a lot of times the person we're reaching out to negotiate can either respond more quickly or has more power than the average provider relations rep. We can negotiate on your behalf because as a third party, we can be given the power to do so. We also have, like I said, all this data and all this leverage of the clients we work with. We have a highly trained team that this is all they do, is to negotiate and increase reimbursement rates. So again, this takes time to gather all this information, to approach the insurance companies, to go back and forth. You then have to have good actual data to compare to see if the offer you've been given is competitive. So that's the benefit of working with somebody like at Unitas, because we've got the team, we've got the time, and we have the proven track record to do so. So ultimately, how you ensure your offers are competitive is to have a third party evaluate them or to do it for you throughout the process, which again, that's why we're educating you today, is because we've been doing it for so many years. This is our process. So if you want to go about doing the process on your own, these are the steps we recommend any practice takes. But if you're worried and wanting to make sure that those offers are competitive before you get locked into them, that's why it's beneficial to work with somebody like Unitas. Now, how do you minimize those risks and maximize those benefits? First, you have to understand what optimization means and what type of opportunities there are to then understand how risky it can be and how much reward there can be on the back end when you're optimizing insurance companies. So number one, let's talk about what that even means. Well, based on your current participation with any given insurance company, we at Unitas typically can identify arrangements that are more profitable than just negotiating. What does that mean? So most insurance companies, like I said earlier, have multiple paths to participation. So we were using that Guardian example before. There's at least 5 different ways to participate with Guardian. So you can be direct with Guardian through their reimbursement. You can go with Guardian through Aetna, Sun Life, Connection, Dynamax, Carrington. There's all these different ways you can partner. So with each of those arrangements, there's another fee schedule on the table or a series of fee schedules from each insurance company. So when we're talking about optimization, you have to look at the global picture and say, is there anything out there that's better than what I'm being paid through this current participation type? If I know that there's 5 or 6 or 7 ways that I could participate with this given insurance company, how many out there are there? How do I approach them and how do I shift them? So not only do we know that those options exist and do we have the leverage to negotiate, we understand how to make those shifts and to minimize the risk involved. Because a lot of times when you're switching from one participation type to another, you have to communicate with multiple parties. You have to specifically sequence who you're going to opt out from. So that way it doesn't shift from, instead of going from Guardian through Aetna to Guardian through Sun Life, it accidentally goes from Guardian through Connection because you didn't intend it to. It went through Connection, which is now worse. So how do you avoid those types of problems? Well, it's a matter of knowing how to do it, who to talk to first, what paperwork to send in, who to follow up with. And again, and understanding what those risks are, that's why we help bring that to your table. It's a lot like why you hire a CPA to maximize and get you the best tax return when you're a business owner. As an individual like me, who just gets paid as a W-2 employee, a lot of times TurboTax is great to just file my taxes. But as a business owner, this is probably why many of you use somebody beyond TurboTax, like a CPA who understands the tax law. And if it even better, somebody that works with dentists who understand their specific needs so they can maximize and get the best tax return. Because they understand the tax law and they understand your industry, they can kind of make it so that way it's worth paying them to get you a higher tax return. The same thing applies with us. There's understandings behind the PPO participation game and there's loopholes. and ways that you can maximize those participation arrangements to get you on a higher fee schedules. That's why it makes sense to work with a third party that understands that. So that's how you minimize those risks, is working with somebody that's done it before. A lot of practices understand that optimization is possible, but if you want to minimize those risks, you want to work with somebody that does it on a regular basis. So optimization, again, like I said, in a nutshell, there's multiple ways you can participate with any given insurance company. Those PPO leasing arrangements are some of the most popular ones out there, and you can switch them. You don't have to be leased from one PPO to another. There's typically multiple ways to participate. So if that's the case, why not participate or figure out what are all the options out there, which one is the most advantageous to you based on reimbursement, and understand the pros and the cons behind switching. That's what we help evaluate. Lastly, how do you calculate what your return on investment is going to be if you're going to spend all this time to do it on your own? When we work with practices, because this is all we do, we track our data pretty close. We understand exactly what offers are coming in and going out the door. We know what's happening regionally, state-based, nationally, to understand what's being paid. So we're able to predict and understand and project what type of results we can get in an area because we work with so many practices. So like I said, we've implemented this framework for the same framework for thousands of practices, which allows us to understand based on some specific numbers, what your projected return on investment could be based off of what our average results are. So when we work with a practice and we negotiate or we optimize, on average, we obtain about a 10% increase on the insurance company fee schedules that we either negotiate or we optimize. Now that 10% average is based off of what we've obtained over all the insurances for that client. So if we worked with you, for example, and we negotiated or optimized 6 of your insurance companies, 10% was your average, that means that some of them could go up by 3%. Some of your PPOs went up by 15 or 30%. So a 10% again is an average, but it's pretty substantial when you take into account what the production can be for an average practice. So if you say, all right, if I got an average 10% increase, whether Unitas did it or we did it on our own, what would be the ROI for my practice? Well, how you translate that is you look at your production and you take out what portions of that are not going to be affected by the negotiation or optimization. So an average practice, what we found is does over $1 million a year in production. The average one man, one location just barely breaks the $1 million mark if they're super busy. Of that production, in our experience, generally at least 50% of that annual production comes from insurance companies that either are willing to negotiate, can be negotiated, or have the opportunity to be optimized. So if you look at your whole patient base, what percentage of that patient base cannot be influenced, no matter how hard you try, by the negotiation and optimization attempts? So Delta Dental, like I said, historically doesn't negotiate, also can't be optimized. Take out TRICARE military plans, you take out Medicare, Medicaid plans, if you take out cash paying patients, usually at least 50% of that remains under main insurance company PPO plans. So if you got an average 10% increase, that's how you get to a $50,000 projected return on investment. If you got above or below that, then you can do the math accordingly. So again, those are our averages. I don't know what your average would be if you tried this on your own, but that's how we're able to project that. So again, if you're trying to weigh the cost benefit between spending the time to do this or outsourcing it to somebody like Unitas, those are the things that you want to take into account. All right. Now here's a couple of case studies of practices that we've done this with. My purposes of showing you these case studies are twofold. Number one, I want you to realize that not only is this possible, but it happens all the time. You don't have to work with somebody like Unitas to get an increase. I talk to hundreds of practices, if not thousands of practices a year, who are able to negotiate on their own. So if you're kind of in the doubt of, I don't know if this is even possible, I'm telling you it's possible. Now, the purpose of the case study is to help educate you on some of the results that we've been able to get for our clients. Again, these results are not a guarantee if you were to work with us. These are all projections based off of the numbers that we have access to. And you can see the little disclaimer there on the bottom about how we calculate this. But for illustrative purposes, here's what we've been able to do. So Dr. Morgan in North Carolina, we recently negotiated 5 contracts for him in PPO networks and optimizations. There was over 2 of those that resulted in over $64,000 in additional revenue. Dr. Baker in Texas, $79,000 increase from 5 negotiations and 3 optimization choices. Dr. Young was over $100,000, 7 negotiations and 4 optimizations. Okay. Now let's review what we've gone over today. My whole purpose of going through this with you today is to help you understand that number one, that negotiations and optimization is possible. But number 2, this is the framework to follow. So if we were like the best restaurant in the world and we sold amazing pizza and you wanted the recipe, here's the recipe, right? If you want to know how to negotiate and optimize, This is the process that we go about doing for our practices. If you want to work with us, that's fantastic. However, I want you to know that these are the processes and the steps that you go through. Number one, you have to know and understand your participation in your reimbursements. So you got to know and map out your participation per doctor. You have to receive and document those fee schedules. And then you got to compare and repair those UCR and reimbursement discrepancies. So that way you can enter the negotiation process on the right foot. After you're done with that, then you start to negotiate. You want to ensure you're not wasting time on the wrong procedures. So you want to focus in on the procedure codes that you actually do. You want to know how to approach the process, know who to talk to, know what to say. And then lastly, we talked about how you can compare those offers that you receive from insurance companies. So you want to compare them against, number one, what they're paying you now, and understand what your quantity is per year per procedure. So that way you're not taking on increases or decreases that ultimately lose you money. And then you want to make sure that you're comparing them against the PPOs that you're taking now. And then lastly, if you want to maximize the negotiation opportunities, if you're going to take this on, you want to work with somebody that allows you to know how competitive those offers are for your area. So a third party like Unitas, who negotiates on behalf of thousands of practices every year, has access to that data. We can show you how competitive your offers are. We can actually negotiate on your behalf. We can optimize on your behalf. We can minimize those risks because this is all we do. And we can calculate your projected return on investment because this is what our service is. Okay. Now, I know that was a ton of information. I wanted to give it to you as quickly as I could because number one, I know you're specifically spending some precious time at the end of your holiday weekend with me, but I also want to be able to make you a special offer because a lot of you have a ton of questions. And I know a lot of practices want some specific strategy or some specific help with their practice. Now, this is something I always show because I feel like this is something I've been talking about for 9 years, but this is a total information overload. And I know it's a ton of information, but it's probably what you're feeling like right now is getting sprayed in the face. So what's going to happen after today, specifically this week? If you're watching this live, right? If you're not watching this after Thanksgiving, you're going to maybe today and tomorrow go back to treating a bunch of patients. You're going to go back to scheduling a bunch of appointments. Then on Thursday, you can go eat a bunch of food, go into a food coma, spend time with family, have the weekend, come back on Monday and completely forget that we ever had this conversation. If you're anything like me, that's probably what's going to happen. Or if you took good notes, then hopefully you'll go through those notes and start to implement this in your practice. However, your practice needs reimbursement rates increased as soon as possible. So I want to make you a special offer that can help you implement this in your practice based on some of the strategies we just talked about. Okay. So if you want to speak with us about how we can help you or what the strategy should be for your practice, should you do this on your own, all you need to do is schedule a free PPO consultation with us. If you go to www.ppoguide.com/go, again, that's www.ppoguide, so PPO insurance, ppoguide.com/go. You can go right now and schedule a free 30-minute consultation. What we'll do is we'll review your insurances, which ones you take. We'll help calculate your potential ROI. We'll identify which service you're best fit for. We'll help you know if it really makes sense for us to do this for you, or if you should consider doing this on your own. If you schedule through this link, I'm going to give you 3 limited time bonuses that help you accomplish this either in your practice if you do it on your own, or continue to solve problems for your practice, even if you choose to work with us either way. So the first thing that you're going to get from us if you schedule and complete this consultation is probably one of our most valuable things that we don't give out at all. This is something that we use internally, and if a client asks for it, we'll give it to them, but this is not typically something we give out to any practice. What this is our PPO Provider Relations Master Contact List. So like I said, we work with thousands of practices. We make hundreds, if not thousands of phone calls to insurance companies every month. So how would we possibly do that without the most accurate and up-to-date contact list for every insurance company that exists? I myself am part of our IT department, so I've helped to build out this list, and it is a nightmare to keep track of. But once it's up to date, believe me, it's a lifesaver. So save yourself hours of sitting on hold because you called the wrong number or clicked the wrong extension. Save yourself all the time of collecting that participation faster. You can get this PPO Provider Relations Master List, easily $199 value, absolutely free. All you have to do is schedule the consultation with us to find out if we're even a good fit to do this for you or not. If we're not, and you want to do it on your own, make your life easier and get that tool. Okay, that's the first thing, right? The second thing you're going to get is our e-guide, which we call the 35 most common insurance problems and how to avoid them. So after 10 years and thousands of clients, we not only do we negotiate and credential with insurance companies, but we get asked insurance questions constantly. So we get thousands and thousands of questions a month. So instead of just saying, sorry, we don't know, we obviously want to help you find the answer. And so we've compiled our top PPO solutions and answers to the most commonly asked insurance related questions. Think of this as basically the top Q&A for anybody that does insurance at your practice. And we compiled the best information. And again, after 10 years, it's tried and true information. So it gives you all the information you would need on down coding, balance billing, out of network benefits and what they are, info changes. So how to update your tax ID, how to update your business name, some key steps to adding an associate to your PPOs. Again, so if you want to save yourself hours and hours of time instead of making these mistakes, and you want to learn from the thousands of mistakes we've helped solve for practices, this is easily a $299 value. You're getting this whole guide absolutely for free. What this is, again, is a simulation of a bunch of documents that we've created that we give to our clients. We're compiling the 35 most popular ones and giving them to you as an e-guide or an ebook for free. Okay. All you have to do is schedule. So go to www.ppoguide.com/go and you can schedule a free consultation, 30 minutes or less. Last thing is that fee schedule analysis tool I was talking about earlier. So if you want to use the same tool that we use to analyze our clients' UCRs versus their PPO fee schedules, then you can get that tool for free as well. So are your UCRs priced too low? Do your reimbursements, how do they compare to other insurance companies? What are your highest reimbursing PPOs? You can answer all those questions with this easy to use online spreadsheet calculator. It's very easy to use. It has all the automated formulas and calculations built in the instructions. It's literally a Google sheet with all of this built together. You copy it into your account. It's very simple to use. Again, at least a $499 value. That's literally the tool we use. So again, we don't give this out even to our clients. If you want to get a copy of this, then go schedule that free consultation and you can get that. So let's recap this. Again, I wanted to make this worth your while. What are you going to get? You're going to get the free PPO evaluation and ROI projection phone call with us. You're going to get the e-guide, 35 of the most common insurance problems. You're going to get the provider relations contact list, the fee schedule analysis tool, hours of saved time. Again, easily over $1,000 worth of free value only for scheduling a call with us to find out if we can help you. If we can't help you, you get all these tools and you're rocking and rolling and starting to negotiate on your own. All right. So again, last time the link is www.ppoguide.com/go. Go schedule that call. Again, don't schedule it for tomorrow because there's probably not enough slots yet. Don't schedule it for Thursday or Friday because we have it blocked off because it's Thanksgiving. Schedule it for next week. So that way, go have fun with your family over the holidays. Come back. We'll have that call, review this information with you. So that way you don't forget about everything that we've gone over today and make it a complete waste of your time. I want to make sure that we implement this in your practice if we can, or help you implement it on your own. All right. That's all of my information. 48 minutes. Hopefully that was good enough for you guys. Now we have a ton of questions coming through here. I want to get to these, some through the chat window, some through the Q&A. Adam, do you want me to read through these and knock these out, or do you want to kind of serve them up? What's easiest for you?
Up to you. It looks like most of the chat is just everyone talking to each other, which is awesome to see.
Awesome.
So maybe start with the Q&A. Awesome. If anyone did ask a question in the chat and we potentially miss it, maybe submit that to the Q&A and then we'll answer it that way.
Yeah, let's knock through the Q&A. That sounds good. All right. So first question was asked: when we terminate a direct contract because we want the claims to be paid under an umbrella that pays higher, how do we handle the insurance company telling patients we are not in network? Now, number one, if that's the intended result, you want to shift from being direct to being through an umbrella, and you currently are direct, it is likely that you have to terminate, which means you do literally go out of network to shift underneath an umbrella. Now, how do you deal with that? Well, number one, you want to make sure that you understand how long of a period of time it's going to take for you to shift from being through this direct contract to being through this umbrella, because it depends on the insurance company. Some insurance companies, if we're going from a direct contract to one of their umbrellas, can take 6 months. Some can take 6 days, 6 weeks, 60 days. It depends on the insurance company. So again, you want to evaluate that. You want to talk to each insurance company and have them help you understand how long that's going to take. Again, that's what we do for you. We help you optimize. One of the benefits that we provide is because we do this so frequently, it's kind of like a play in football. We run these plays so frequently, we know how long they take. We know what the risks are. So the same thing here. If we were to suggest, hey, you should terminate your Aetna contract to shift it underneath Sun Life, we know that we've done that 40 times in the last 60 days, and it's taking X amount of days to make that shift happen. So we can give you that information when we make the recommendation and say, hey, on average, it's taking, and again, this is just an example, it's taking 60 days to make this specific shift. So keep that in mind. You're going to be out of network. So again, if you treat patients, they're going to get paid out of network for this period of time, and the PPO is probably going to communicate to them. So that's one of the risks. However, here's one of the benefits. So again, this is all illustrative, but if we were to make a recommendation like that to you, we would say, here's one of the risks. You may be out of network for, let's say it's 60 days. They may communicate with your patients. However, once that shift is complete and you're now back in network, you're A, going to show back up on the directory again. B, you're going to get paid in network. But C, even more importantly, your reimbursement rate is going up by X. So it may be 10, 15, 25%, and this much more revenue. So those are the decisions we help you weigh, because again, it's pretty scary to make those optimization choices. Kingsley had brought that up. Again, that's going to be pretty scary to make those decisions. That's why I recommend you work with somebody that's doing this, because they can help you understand what the ultimate risk is, because they're doing it for so many practices. So again, that sounds kind of self-serving, but I don't really recommend optimizing on your own until you've talked to somebody about what the risks and benefits are before you even attempt it. Okay, because that timing window is probably the most important piece of that whole equation. Hopefully that's helpful. And then again, you asked, after terminating MetLife, how do I get claims picked up by Zealous? Same principle. Again, it depends on how long it takes to shift from MetLife to Zealous. So that's something I recommend you reaching out to us to talk to you about how long that's taking, if that's something you're trying to attempt for your area, how long that's taking, and whether or not, again, we would even recommend you try that. So I would recommend reaching out to our team, schedule that free call, and we can talk to you about what the options are. All right, Brianna asks, do you know when this became a thing or legal for an insurance company to basically sell our offices to other insurances without our permission? I'm sure fine print somewhere, but it never seems like it's right. That's a super common concern. And yes, it is legal. It's in the contract that you sign when you join an insurance company. As far as I know, I mean, we have an attorney on staff. That provision, in order for them to lease you, has been in effect with most every insurance company since their beginning, which PPO dental insurance, again, has only been in existence for probably at most anywhere from 2 to 3 decades. But their ability to lease you out, it's becoming more and more prominent, and most of them have the power to do so. So to answer your question, is it legal? Yes. Do they need to notify you? As far as I know, most of them don't. But again, it's not always a bad thing. You can use it to your advantage if you're optimizing. So a lot of practices see this and they get mad. We see it as an opportunity. So just because Aetna can lease you through Guardian doesn't mean that that's a bad thing. That also means that Aetna can lease you 7 other ways. So if you're with Aetna through Guardian, what do all their other partnerships look like? So that's 7 different fee schedules we could help you evaluate to understand what's the best way to participate with Aetna, as opposed to if leasing didn't exist at all, you'd kind of be up crap creek if you went to Aetna and tried to negotiate and they said no. You've got no other options. So today, if Aetna says no, you can still potentially switch your participation. That same concept applies to many insurance companies. So Kimberly asked, how do we know if we're competitive for our area? I think I answered that later on throughout the presentation, but one of the best ways to know if you're competitive is to work with somebody like Unitas, who has access to all these fee schedules because we've worked with practices to be able to, we will analyze and say, hey, this is a good offer for your area, or this really is not that great. We should go back for more. We're never going to share with you actual fee schedules from other practices in your area. The reason why is because A, that's illegal against insurance contracts, and B, that's going to damage relationships with insurance companies. We understand that those fee and those reimbursement rates are private. And so that allows us to say, what do we see? How do we compare it? And here's where you fall at or below the average for your area. Kimberly asks, if we're in contract with an insurance company we've signed a contract with, how are they able to lower our fee schedule? So again, there are 2 main insurance companies that have tried that in the last year. Why are they able to lower it? Because contractually they can. Now, with any of those insurance companies, I recommend always pushing back and saying, hey, we're unhappy with this. If you're going to lower fee schedule, we may consider terminating. However, I never recommend terminating on a bluff. If you're truly unhappy with the fee schedule and you're so unhappy with it that you'd rather go out of network, make sure you communicate that to the insurance company. We've had many clients that have done that and it's worked to their favor and they've been able to stay on their original fee schedule. Doesn't mean that it always will happen, but again, those are things that we can help you evaluate either as a client or through one of these consultations. Rachel asks, If I'm unhappy with Dynamax fees and several companies who use them, should we consider ending our contract with them and contracting directly with an insurance company if we're pleased with their fees? Well, ending a contract with Dynamax caused the fees to revert to the original fee schedules we started off with in a direct contract. The answer is sometimes. Just because you terminated contract with Dynamax doesn't mean that you've severed all the ties. The best way to think about participation is it's like a huge web. So if the palm is Aetna, right, and you're connected through Dynamax, well, guess what? If you're also networked with Guardian and Sun Life and Carrington and Connection, you're connected to Aetna potentially up to 5 ways. So just because you sever a relationship with Dynamax does not mean you're automatically going to go to a direct contract. What happens is Aetna can go see that you're in network with any of these 4 and partner you through one of those arrangements. So again, just by snipping away one doesn't mean that this is where you end up destination-wise. You can potentially still shift or bump over to, oh, well, now you're Aetna through Sun Life, or oh, now you're Aetna through Zealous. So just by simply terminating a contract doesn't guarantee that you go from one destination to another. Another one of those things we can help educate you on a consultation. And again, one of the things we do when we optimize for you. Patty asks, does this work with long day. Patty asks, does this work with orthodontic practices? Absolutely, it does. We work with plenty of orthodontic practices. PPOs are still willing to negotiate those orthodontic fee schedules. Steve asks, how do we get Delta to negotiate? They haven't increased benefits in 10 plus years. Is this the only option? Is the only option to drop them? That's a great question, Steve. We've been trying for 10 years. Things may change in the future. We are not sure. But as for now, Delta has historically been unwilling to negotiate. I know there's a lot of legal changes going on right now, so that may change. But again, as far as we know, it's pretty unlikely for them to negotiate. Other than that, I think the chats are all, like you said, Adam, I think these are all
Keeps
comments.
going, yeah. Let's see, there are a couple questions that I see. When is the correct time to approach the insurance companies and start negotiations? And then when do we renew the insurance? Oh, sorry, when we renew the insurance or at the end of the year?
It's a great question. So many practices confuse recredentialing dates with negotiation dates. So when you've credentialed with an insurance company, you've established a relationship that's ongoing indefinitely, so long as you continue to recredential every 3 years. When you're recredentialing, you're not re-agreeing to a fee schedule. You're simply reconfirming that you as the doctor are still a doctor in good standing that has a malpractice policy that still is in good standing with his license or her license. You're not re-agreeing to a new fee schedule. You're simply just reauthorizing and keeping that contract in place. Okay, so let me repeat that again. Recredentialing with an insurance company, which is required with almost every insurance every 3 years, is not re-agreeing to a fee schedule. You're simply keeping in good standing as a participating provider. If you forget to recred, or you did have a malpractice claim and they reevaluate you, they could terminate your contract and drop you out of network, right? And sever that relationship. However, let's say you've been a great doctor, you haven't killed anybody, nothing crazy's happened, you still have your license, and you've sent in recred notices, and you're on your 9th year in participation with that insurance company, and you're on the same fee schedule, and you recredentialed with them last month. You didn't re-agree to the fee schedule and lock it in for 2 years last month. You simply recredentialed. That fee schedule, if it hasn't been negotiated, most PPOs will consider negotiating every 2 years. So if you've never negotiated, in our opinion, that's due to negotiate. If you negotiated 6 months ago, they gave you an offer, you signed it, and you give it back to them, and they processed it, then you'd probably want to wait 2 years before you renegotiate that fee schedule. So those are the differences there that are pretty common to confuse.
Awesome. Well, I've seen a lot of people have signed up for free consults already, so that's great to see. The only other question I'm seeing that I would like to ask you about is, what do you charge for your services?
That depends on what type of practice you are. So we have 3 different pricing models depending on the different service offerings. So let me kind of give you a brief overview. So we have different practices. If you're an established practice that's been in business and been in network with your insurances for more than 2 years, we have our core service. We charge per location per doctor. And again, that varies on the practice. We have a second service for fee for service. So if you're not in network with anybody right now, but you feel pressured to join because you're losing patients, we have a different service for that. Scaled back a little bit and is a little bit quicker because we're just gathering proposals. Or if you're a practice that's opening for the first time, you're brand new, or you're buying somebody out in the next couple of months and you need to establish a new set of ownership, then we help practices with that as well. So the pricing all varies depending on the insurance, or sorry, not the insurance, depending on the practice type and the number of locations and providers that you have. And that's something that we can go over on the consultation. right? What else do you have?
I think that's it. 1 hour on the dot.
All right, sweet. Well, that's all I have. I appreciate everybody's time today. And again, please go to ppguide.com/go. I will put my email address in here too for everyone. So feel free to shoot me an email. It's just my first name. It's Phylip with a Y and one L. Feel free to shoot me an email if that's easier for you, and I can answer via email, or we can schedule time to speak. But Adam, that's all I have today.
Excellent. Well, thank you everyone for the lively chat in the chat, as well as all the questions. We did record tonight's webinar, so we'll shoot that out to you sometime next week. Again, take advantage of the free consultations there. If you have questions, email Phylip or info@unitasdental.com. Thanks everyone for attending. Hope you have a safe and relaxing couple days here for Thanksgiving.
Awesome. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Thanks, Adam.